Welcome to Pulse, the podcast. Brought to you by the Substacks American Pulse and Canadian Pulse. With your hosts, George Froehlich and Tamara Stanners. Welcome to Pulse, the podcast. And I'm Tamara Stanners. That's George.
That's me indeed.
That's right. We have exciting news. We're going to change our format slightly in the coming week. We've realized that as much as we have both Canadian and American viewers or listeners to the podcast, that sometimes we want to delve deeper into some Canadian news that maybe our American friends might not be as interested in. So starting next week, we're going to have both a Canadian Pulse podcast and an American Pulse podcast. We're excited about that.
Well, I think that's very good news, because as you say, there's a lot of people, cross subscriber list. And this way it gives us a lot more flexibility to talk about stuff that's common to both countries and also specifics to each country. And I think that our listeners will certainly enjoy that.
I think so too. And we're going to unveil in the coming weeks something that both George and I are really excited about, and that is doing Substack Lives. And that is going to be just us totally unfiltered and live, answering questions from paid subscribers to American Pulse and Canadian Pulse. And I think that that is going to be a real fun way of getting deeper into these topics that are changing our world.
And I think, people are going to respond to it well, because judging by the comments I get on Substack a day, up to 200 people commenting on this and commenting on that. And then within that context, there's a topic, then others will respond to what somebody said. And, we're going to do the same thing, except it's going to be live and people are going to be able to talk about it instead of writing about it, which is going to be a lot more interesting, I think, than writing about it. And it's going to be easier.
And, we have such smart subscribers, readers, and commenters that I think that we're going to learn a lot too. That's the cool thing about this is we're not living in some little silo. We know that this is affecting each of us in such different and unique ways that we have different takes on it too. So I'm excited about that to see what else is out there. Like the truth is out there, George.
The truth is out there. Well, you know what, Tamara, really impresses me? The details of the responses quite often. Very well thought out and just right on top of things. They know what they're talking about, our subscribers to both of the newsletters. And that's nice to see. That doesn't mean to say you don't get the kooks. So, sort of, I hate this and I hate that. It's almost like they press a button and they can choose from what they hate. But being a journalist, I give them a lot of leeway, but when they get out of line, I just block them.
So what George is saying, if you're watching right now and you're just about to get out of line, he's just going to block you. But if you have thoughtful, considerate comments, we're all about it.
You hit the nail right on the head. But I will give them a bit of leeway. I just don't like personal attacks. It's not because personal, because they're irrelevant. And I mean, they're stupid attacks. Like some people think I'm being paid by the Carney government or I'm being paid by the Trump government to write this stuff. And it's simply not true. And when you get those kind of stupid remarks, those people, I usually block them because they don't contribute anything. They're just interested in doing their own stupid thing that is much ado about nothing and just cause a commotion. So goodbye and good riddance.
Good for you, George. I love that about you. Boundaries, very important. I think it also brings up a really important piece, too, where you're not getting paid by anybody except for paid subscribers you spend. And I know how much time you spend on your Substacks. Like you're working around the clock because I'm getting my emails at 5 a.m. from you and actually live ones, at midnight. I know how hard this is. So any paid subscription really goes to funding the research that you're doing. And I feel like if for any other reason, but you give a lot more to paid subscribers, just knowing that that money is going to a good use is worth subscribing and becoming a paid subscriber.
Well,
that sounded like a sales pitch.
Well, you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. And let me just tell you something else. What we charge is $69 a year. And that is right in the middle of what most people charge. I read a study recently from Reuters, which said the average newsletter in the political sphere charges $110 a year. And, for Canadian Pulse and American Pulse. People get the regular free Wednesday Pulse edition. Then they get two or three special reports. They get the podcast, and now there's going to be live coming up.
Right.
I mean,
Hey,
I hate to say it,
George,
but it is a deal.
and it's like that works out to under $6 a month, right?
Yeah.
It's a great deal. I think it's a great deal. I love what you're doing, and I'm just so happy that we can continue to do this. But we have to get into the show because holy smokes, there's a lot going on. Just when we thought we could maybe delve into who might be a good candidate as a Republican, if anything happens to Donald Trump, we've got more to do. Like on today's show, George has been building a special report for months, and that is how
It,
Carney
yeah.
has been building the European power bloc.
Yes. He's been doing it very, very quietly. And he really sees the creation of a stronger Europe as a power block for the rest of the world, not to be a part of, but they can join in different ways and, do deals with the European community. And he said that openly. And he's done a lot of stuff behind the scenes where he does it quietly. And Canada has joined a lot of European efforts.
Just
So
hold on
even
one
the
second, because we don't wanna give it all away, because that's just a promo for what's coming up. Because we're
yes,
wondering if the Americans will ever reclaim the former glory as a world superpower, which is very interesting, and we're gonna get to that later. But also the US-Israeli war against Iran, which was supposed to have been done in 4 weeks, no signs of ending. Where are we now? Month
back
5?
to the old fight. And the thing is this, his options are running out. Number one, he can't control the Iranians because they get control of the Straits of Hormuz. The American public hates the war. The midterms are coming up. So what the heck does he do? He's caught in a bind, and he
I know.
doesn't
Just hold on to
learn.
that thought too. Hold that thought because we're just promoting what we have coming up. This is very important because you also have this incredible headline that I have to read that we're going to get to also later in the show. And that is from your Substack, Collateral Silence: How US Weapons, Trump's Rhetoric, Policies, and Western Media Enable Gaza's Destruction. That headline just like got me in the heart. I can't wait to talk more about that. And the Gordie Howe Bridge, which is finally going to open. And did Canada have to give up a lot to get it? We're going to get into that. And have Canadians stopped drinking? Or have we just stopped drinking American wine because we know that we can't? And I know the American wineries are suffering, and we're going to just like touch on that too. But we have to get going into this, going back to what we started talking about in the first place, which is Carney's new European bloc that he's creating, a power block. And you've been investigating this for like 4 to 5 months. Tell us what you've learned.
Well, it's working. I mean, the joke by some of the politicians in Europe is, Carney, why don't you just join the European Economic Union? Because for want of a better word, you're there already. So let's make it a reality. And yeah, the thing about him, Carney, is he does stuff in a very methodical way. He has a vision, and he basically announced a vision at Davos in Switzerland, where he said, the world has changed. Old alliances no longer work. And so it's upon us, Canada, basically. He didn't go this far, but the subtext was Canada, in order to survive, has to create new alliances. So who does he know best? And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of these things happen because of people that he knows. He knows a lot of these people when he was the governor of the Bank of England, when he was negotiating with various heads of state about the Brexit deal. He knows these people, so he goes to Europe because that's the easiest way. The politicians there know him, they respect him. So for him to forge a new alliance with Europe, it's almost a given. Whereas in Asia, that's not going to happen overnight. I mean, he's gone to India, he's gone to Saudi Arabia, and he goes there with a different mindset than Trudeau would have gone. Trudeau would have gone to these countries, almost lecturing to some extent about their human rights activities. And Carney's perspective on that is, we may not like the human rights activities, But if we do a deal with them, at least we know these people and we can influence them. But the overriding factor he sees right now for Canada is to diversify our economy, get the economy going. And then once the economy is going, then he's going to go back to some of these social programs that he's dropped. He's basically saying, look, folks, we can't afford it all. So what are we going to do? If we want those social programs back, how do we get there? Well, it's a given. I mean, that you have to have a strong economy. And the problem is because of the Trump trade talks, we can't rely on the US anymore as our market. So he's got to diversify. And all of that takes time.
Well, and you just brought up the reasons for all of these changes, which, by the way, a lot of Canadians don't agree with exactly how Carney is handling this. They don't like the fact that he's going into Asian markets or the fact that he's going into Saudi Arabian markets as well, due to the human rights issues and other things too. But he is, as you say, doing it for the reasons that he finds very valid. Is like we just have been absolutely attacked by Trump and his evil tariff war and his rhetoric too about taking us over as the 51st state. Like that's a deep offense that I think Carney has taken extremely seriously, and that is why he's looking like, okay, like if our best friend is now our biggest enemy, our former enemies maybe could be our friends.
Correct. And like I say, it's all a long range game. And I keep reading on social media, well, you know, what has he done? He's signed these MOUs agreement. That doesn't mean anything. But I mean, people don't understand that stuff doesn't happen overnight. First, what you've got to do, especially in countries, he was the first prime minister to visit Saudi Arabia in 26 years. Okay. When you go there, you can't just waltz in there and say, okay, let's do a deal. It's like the way I look at it, those things are like becoming friends with somebody. You meet somebody, you think, I'd like to become a friend. And that doesn't happen overnight that you trust each other and you're going to go out together. You know, you play it by ear. You look at what the other side is doing. Then you do this, the other side does that. And gradually develop a friendship. Well, diplomacy is essentially the same thing. Except the only difference is with diplomacy and friendships is that diplomacy always has number one, uh, the country at heart to protect its interests, and that doesn't mean to say you have the same old friends. You diversify your friends. And that essentially, in a nutshell, is the analogy that best applies to Carney and what he's doing right now.
And I guess that at one point he said that he wasn't ready to, what was the word he said? Lecture any other countries for their behaviors. But sometimes you look at those behaviors like of Saudi Arabia and the alleged, like, say, for example, Khashoggi, like that whole story is so horrible. And, that we can look past it as a country to, further our economic gains. Like, I sometimes think, is it worth it? And we're going to see. Like, we'll see how it all plays out in the decade to follow. Cause I think that maybe decades, what is transpiring here and has transpired over the last couple of years is going to be unfolding for a very long time. Like, it's going to take
Absolutely.
yeah, you talked about it in your article. Will the Americans or will the US ever recover from the damages that have been done or are being done? And could they ever regain the status of world superpower?
Well, I mean, that is the crucial question. My analysis indicates if they want to do that and become more globally oriented, whereas right now Trump is drawing within the country's drawing within itself. They don't care about old alliances. He doesn't like that. He doesn't like that. He pisses the European leaders off, and gradually they say to themselves, we've had enough. We've got to look elsewhere. It's like the friend you've had for all your life. And all of a sudden he starts bad mouthing you. Well, you're going to give him a bit of a chance, but it's going to reach the point of no return where you're going to say, I'm not putting up with that. And that's the stage that the Europeans are in. And it's going to be very hard on that friendship analogy to come back unless the Americans really. make it so that countries that have sort of abandoned them, for want of a better word, make it worth their while to come back. And that in itself is not gonna happen overnight if it happens. And especially if in the meantime those countries have developed their own alliances and are strong economically. And that's what you're starting to see with the European Economic Union. I mean, once they're really solidified and they got some strong economic forces helping them without the US, they're going to look beyond the US, they're going to look at Asia, how to develop better relationships there. They're going to look at the Middle East. I mean, it's just natural. You look at diplomacy, that's what diplomacy is all about and has been ever since it became a reality.
Well, and now we can like easily segue into the 4-week war that is now going into its fifth month, the American-Israeli war against Iran, which the European countries and Canada don't want to be involved in. It was nothing anybody on the planet wanted except for Israel and the United States. Well, and that's the thing. It isn't an issue that I feel like most Americans want to be involved in either. They were taken unwillingly into a situation that has absolutely created havoc on the planet.
They're totally opposed to the war in Iran. And let me tell you something else. The whole alliance and the domestic politics in the United States are changing. The United States, Trump said it at one time, if it wasn't for American policy, Israel wouldn't be where it is today. And you know what? I agree with him because the Americans were the ones who allowed Israel to do a lot of the stuff like attack neighboring countries, threaten Iran with nuclear terror and all of that. That was because of American policy supporting it. But there's a new development happening and it's sort of simmering below the surface. Let me tell you what it is. What's happening is, number one, the war in Gaza by the Israelis is being supported by old Americans. The young Americans are totally opposed to it. They don't want to have anything to do with it. And here's another interesting factor. Some of the Democrats who were big proponents of help being Israel, pro-Israel, are changing. Rahm Emanuel, former mayor of Chicago, a big advisor in Obama's cabinet, he ended up being the ambassador to Tokyo, is now back. And get this now, this is the key. He's Jewish, a strong, devoted Jew. He gave a speech the other day in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and said, enough is enough. We we are no longer interested in supporting you, and you better change your ways. And now the key is Emmanuel is considered to be running for the American presidency when the
Oh,
next
really?
election happens. Yeah, for the Democrats.
Hmm.
And he is express. I mean, I read this speech and I was surprised and I knew a bit about him. So I researched him. I mean, you wouldn't believe how strong he was felt towards Israel.
Hmm.
He supported them wherever he could. He gave them advice during the various wars Israel conducted. He's totally against it now. And that is going to
Such a
upset the apple
shift.
cart. Oh, absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
mean,
And it's going to shift the whole policy in the Middle East towards how the Middle East feels towards Israel. And Netanyahu is such a hawk, he doesn't get it.
well, I want like, and I was just going to ask you, how long has he actually been in power? It's been my whole adult life, as far as I can remember. Like, I remember, what has it been in since the 80s that
Yes.
Yahoo has?
Well, I used to work at the Journal, and we had a
Yeah.
program at CBC Journal, which was sort of a live interview with newsmakers all over the world. And we used to, Barbara Frem, who was the host then, used to talk to him regular. And guess who booked him? I did. So
So,
I would call the embassy in Washington, and I'd say I'd like to speak to Mr. Netanyahu. This is George Froehlich from the CBC Journal. So I got to know a sense of the guy, and he was a hard ass back then.
and
And
he
I
was
think,
like very young, right? Like he was a young upstart who I don't think anybody saw that he was going to turn into the absolute tyrant that he is today. Or did you already get that sense those many years ago, like 4 decades ago?
Well, I always got the sense I didn't think a sense tyrant is the right word. I didn't get a sense to he's involved in all sorts of hanky-panky and accused of corruption and all that. I thought he was a man of principles, whether I agreed with those principles or not, and I always felt he probably could become the prime minister of Israel. But I never took it further. I just thought the way he deported himself, he was very good with the media, very professional. I thought, he's got the skills, the intellectual abilities to do that. Now, whether he's interested or not, I never looked at that further, but I was impressed by him, even though I didn't agree with some of his hard-ass policies. But intellectually and everything else, politically, he's got the smarts. I don't know what happened to him. Maybe he was corrupt all the time. But once he became prime minister, he's been before the
It's
courts, and it's not settled yet.
crazy.
It goes on. Yeah.
Like, it's actually crazy. I mean, is that the same guy? That was what I thought, multiple years ago when I'm like, "Is it the same guy who actually seemed to be incredibly diplomatic and smart?" The guy that I remember from, like, those 4 decades ago. I had to go back and check because I took a little break from the news, and I'm like, "This is the same man? How does that happen?" Like, he obviously has been corrupted, and one of the things that I thought was really incredible in that headline about Gaza is that you also, um, said that the Western media is playing a big part in the fact that it has been allowed to go on for 2 years, an absolutely disgusting, terrible genocide, which is what it is. And the interesting way that it's covered, because I've even seen it myself, where, what happened in Israel was absolutely disgusting. Almost, is it 3 years ago now, in October at the music festival, it was absolutely the worst. I couldn't even believe it, but knew at that moment that the world was gonna blow up just because there was no other way that, you know, Hezbollah, all who they were never going to sit back and just allow Israel to go after them, but Israel has, like, totally gone after them. It was
Well, they've
Hezbollah,
gone
right?
after them to the point where they've been accused of genocide. Netanyahu has been banned in certain countries. The settlers are very right wing, rabid Jews, and they've taken over Palestinian land, drove them off, killed people, and killed them while the military was watching with no retribution, no nothing. And this is the kind of policy he encourages. And he's got some right wingers in his cabinet that they want to annex Palestine, drive all the Palestinians out. They love the idea of Trump turning it into a resort. I mean, they're crazy. And the point being is he does nothing about it. Now, to some extent,
No, I think he helped build the fires of hatred to the point where,
oh yeah.
I feel sorry for the Israeli people who have actually been, so brainwashed, and there's so much propaganda that they don't they can't even see the truth anymore.
Well, and the other thing is that they always invoke the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Do you know, and Jews today, the older generation doesn't get it. As soon as a synagogue is defaced or something, they bring it back to the Holocaust. We remember, how can you forget? Well, the reason why people are doing it, and it's all the younger generation, they're doing it because they know what's going on in Gaza. They don't buy the propaganda that Netanyahu and his thugs are trying to propagate all over the world. They know it's Gaza. It's got nothing to do with the Holocaust. And that's just a convenient political rhetoric that the older Jews in Israel and all over the world buy, but the younger generation doesn't.
At the
I
same
mean,
time, that can't be condoned either, because it's just like this an ongoing cycle of violence and hatred, and I don't know how it's ever gonna be stopped now, because, like, what and this is the same with Iran too. There's no way that the Iranian people are just gonna sit down and say, "Oh, it's okay, you started this war." Even if it ends, even if Trump can end it magically in the next couple weeks, they're going to want vengeance because the Americans took out all of the top family, like, almost everybody in the Ayatollah's family, murdered. Every
yeah.
kids, everybody. There's no way that's gonna go just like, "Oh, that's okay." Okay, the war's over. We can open the Strait of Hormuz. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. It's never going to be fine. It's going to again be decades of turmoil.
Absolutely. And you know, the other thing is Trump hasn't learned from no, I'm going to say hasn't learned from history, but that's sort of a misnomer because he can't learn anything unless it suits him. Uh, Look at American presidents who've waged wars since the Second World War uh, across the world. Sorry,
Vietnam. Let's go there.
what's the? I
Korea,
can't. Yeah, all those Pakistan and no, the Taliban, you know,
Taliban. Yep.
and all of that. They Iraq and all of that, they've had to move out of there because they haven't won a war. I actually did a whole newsletter on that. And, you know, he thought I'm going to go in there and I'm going to show them who's boss and I'll settle this in 4 days. Well, you know what he said about Ukraine? He's going to settle this in 4 days. He said the same thing about Gaza. I'm going to settle this in a few days. And nothing has happened. You know, I mean, the man is a total liar. He's full of himself because I think he actually goes in there and figures by the magnetic personality that he thinks he has, people are just going to roll over and listen to Trump. Yes, sir, we'll do that. Yes, sir. And he doesn't understand anything. No. And the worst part is he doesn't want to learn. And I'm sure his advisors are telling them he's just ignoring them.
I mean, he yeah, he has to be. And is he ignoring them or is he just that self-centered and self-serving that he honestly believes that I can do it. I can people listen to me, I can get this
Oh
done,
yeah, I
not
think that's it.
realizing
That's it. Yeah.
and
And
behind
it's
his back, people are laughing at him.
and I think it's reached a stage where the current advisors, because they're all yes men, they don't bring the concerns forward. It's basically, yes, Mr. Trump. Yes, sir. Of course, sir. I think you're right. Let's do this. He says, let's do this. Yes, sir. They're all yes people. And this book by Maggie Haberman from the New York Times, and the other journalist escapes me
I
the
forget
name.
his name, I always do. It's a very, very good book. I've been watching interviews with her for the last couple weeks. Very good.
And she says exactly the same thing. He is surrounded by yes people and nobody's there to put up guardrails. And so that's why we're seeing these sort of gyrations. One day he's going to teach the Iranians a lesson. The next day he's sucking up to them. Let's try to do a deal. And the guy's a madman. There's no doubt in my mind.
And there are reasons behind his madness too, in the fact that, it was released that he's made $2.2 billion over the course of his presidency, which works out to, my husband told me this morning because he read it, $6 million a day that Trump has managed to put into his bank account since he became president for the second term. That is not by accident. That is by strategic moves that he and his family are making to make money for all of them, enrich themselves by destroying the planet and relationships at the same time. Planetary relationships that are going to take decades, if not longer, to mend.
Well, you know, history will record this period as one of the worst ever for the American empire. There's no doubt in my mind. And he will go down as probably the worst president the United States has ever seen. And you know, the irony is he thinks he's the world's greatest political figure right now. And all this stuff that he does with foreign countries, he believes is going to get him that accolade in history. Well, again, it's this sense of he's got no sense of what he's really all about. It's this sense, if I believe it, it's going to happen. And they're all sucking up to me and they're going to recognize me as the world's greatest political leader that ever lived. And he
Well,
doesn't understand.
he's a narcissist, but the one of the things that probably made him feel really happy is that the Gordie Howe Bridge between Detroit and Windsor is finally going to open after months of a standoff between Canada and the US and negotiations because his friend who owned a competing bridge who had given him $1 million didn't want the new bridge opened because it was going to take away money from from that other family. Anyway, negotiators have managed to come up with a plan to open the bridge, and it is you know the details. I know the details. Who wants to go?
It's basically what it comes down to after tolls have been paid, and this has been paid. What are the net profits? Okay. And the net profits are going to be very small. That's what Trump managed to negotiate. And
50%
Carney
of
said, pardon me?
50% of those net
And the
profits.
net profits, according to Carney, he gave a little speech about that at the Calgary Stampede, is going to be negligible. And he's boasting he did this. Originally, he wanted half of the bridge, everything half for the United States, all the toll fields half, everything half for the United States. Well, what he got is next to nothing, nothing to crow about. But of course, knowing Trump, he went on social media and trumpeted, I negotiated a great deal, yada, yada, yada.
Right, and just, as some background, Canada paid $6.8 billion to build the bridge, and in the original agreement, it was going to just get recouped all of the expenses right off the top, and then afterwards, that's when the tolls would be split 50-50. It's almost the exact same deal, I think. It didn't change that much if we're getting paid back expenses first and then splitting 50%. Isn't that the same deal that we used to
Yeah,
have?
yeah, except, yeah, except, he didn't get it what he wanted. I mean, that's the thrust he got. So all the expenses are carried forward in terms of the revenue, and whatever is left is the net profit. And that's
And
what
then
he gets his
yeah,
share of.
and then there's going to be a joint, Canadian and American, authority that will then split the proceeds of the tolls, and they are the ones who will determine the hikes in the tolls or maybe what if there was, like, a dreamy thing where they dropped the toll price or even got rid of it? Like, they're the ones who are gonna determine it, but it's a joint force as opposed
Yes,
to Canada having control.
that's right.
Yes. Well, we got a bridge named after Gordie Howe, and it's finally going to be opened. And that is the good news, especially because it is the primary trading route between Canada and the US. And having that shut down too is I think it's monumental to have it open. It's great.
Well, 25% of all the trade between Canada and the United States crosses that border.
That's crazy. That's a lot. Speaking of trade, and I think this is a big one. Um, Wine. I mean, I know that this is not a news story in any way, but like, new as in brand new, because obviously, when the tariffs came in, Canada stopped importing American alcohol, and I think that Canada is the biggest buyer of American alcohol, or had been up until a couple years ago. And so now the Canadian or the Californian and Washington and Oregon wineries are asking us to come back. They really want us to come back because I think what I read that is in 2025, wine sales between the US and Canada or dropped 77%. Like we stopped buying 77% of the wine that we used to from the United States. Which made me sad because I really, really actually love American. I love Cab Savs from California and from Washington State. They're so good, and Oregon too, and I was sad to have to give that up, but we did it because we had to. We had to, George. We had to be strong for our country.
Well, we did it too. I haven't bought
Yeah.
any American liquor of any kind since Trump came to power. And, it's that old elbows up campaign. Enough is enough. And now the Americans, as you say, they're losing their shirts, some of those wineries. And
I know, I feel bad.
because of the boycott, and you're absolutely right. American wines are delicious. I mean, we used to
They
go to
are.
Palm Springs on a regular basis, and we'd pass all those wineries. We'd stop in there, and they're not only are
So
the wines
good.
themselves magnificent, but the wineries themselves are magnificent. Set a
Beautiful.
lush tree fields, beautiful restaurants. I
Just
mean, a
gorgeous.
lot of that is in trouble.
I went to the, Napa Bottle Rock Music Festival. Say hi to Linda. Linda's talking to me. Napa
Island,
Hi, Linda. It's a music festival, and I saw the Foo Fighters there and Tom Petty, one of his last concerts, right in the heart of Napa, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I miss that. I want all of this craziness to end so that we can get back to being pals again, like to be like easy pals. Obviously, we're going to be your friends, Americans, like who are listening to this forever. But we want some normalcy, some wine.
Well, it's interesting you say that because there's a lot of Americans and Canadians that, as a result of all of this happening, hate each other.
No.
Judging by the media posts I'm getting in response to some of my articles, some Americans are saying, "Oh, you Canadians, you're terrible, you're self-centered. All you care about is yourself." And American Canadians are throwing back the same type of comments at the Americans. So I think what you said was interesting because I think most people, once this is all over and it's going to go back to normalcy, I think that friendship will resume.
I
But
hope.
for a lot of people, it won't. It's sort of like it's stuck a dagger in their hearts, and they're never, ever going to forgive the Americans or the Canadians, depending on which side of the mouth they're talking on.
I really hope that that's not true. Everybody needs some therapy. We're gonna need some group therapy over a nice glass of Cabernet. We could even bring in some Canadians, wines as well, just to share together, but just, like, we're gonna need a lot of therapy as 2 nations coming back together again. I could
I
do it.
totally agree. You
I
could
could
do
do
it.
it. Yeah. We're gonna
Mother,
sing songs around the fire. Have sing-alongs. I don't know what it's gonna take, but, at the core, I believe that, the American dream was a really, beautiful thing, if not, uh, possible, just because it was, like, pretty much all based on everybody having all kinds of things that maybe weren't necessary, but at the core of it all was goodness and neighborly love and helping each other out. I thought. That's what I thought, 'cause I watched Saturday morning television cartoons, and they were all American, and that's what I got out of that. And I feel like Canada is the same way. I think that we share so much in that way, just that taking care of your neighbors, making sure everybody's okay, and that has been lost. That has been lost to a point in the US because people stopped trusting each other. They didn't understand how good each other was. But you're still good, my American friends. Aren't they, George? Say so. Speak
totally
louder.
agree. I mean, but when there's a rift in a fight, that usually happens. If two families fight, you're going to have some people in the family think this, others will think that. And, I like to use that family analogy, and we're seeing that play out on the political scene now because, and you know what? It's all because of Trump. There was no need for it. But the only thing that disturbs me is it disturbs me in a sense, and it doesn't disturb me in a sense, is how they could have voted for him. But I think I've made the point before is that there were a lot of things wrong with the American political system, and the middle class was not being taken care of anymore by the Democrats. And the Democrats had been in power for so long that they thought the way they did business would be a continual thing. And along comes a messiah who's got great speaking abilities, Trump, and he's going to say, "Look, folks, it's terrible out there, but you know what? Vote for me. I'll lead you into the promised land. Look at make America great again," right? Because
Yeah.
instinctively, a lot of Americans realized that America had lost a lot of power. And so he comes along and says, "I'll fix it. You vote for me."
Well, I think too, like, the people that he was talking to were the ones who had been hurt the most, who were financially having difficult times. The economy wasn't, I mean, it was doing all right, but there were people who are making minimum wage of $7, trying to make things work, needing food stamps, needing all of that, and that was hard, and they saw a guy who they thought understood them. There's nobody who understands them less than that man, who has never suffered for anything in his life except for being a complete idiot. Like, he's taken so much from so many people for so long, and he's an excellent liar, so they bought it, and it's sad. They were misled fully, and now they
Well,
can see.
the irony of the whole thing is the very people that voted for him are the ones he's abandoned. He doesn't care about them. He just said he would, fix it, but he hasn't done anything. I mean, farmers are some of his biggest supporters. He's done basically nothing for them, and
Oh, he's made it
uh,
really hard on them. He's made it
yeah,
really hard. And then there is the story about how JD Vance, amongst others, are part of, I think that even Trump is, or his sons, part of a company that buys up those struggling farmers' land, for pennies on the dollar, because the farmers aren't able to make it work. But these guys are taking it over, getting richer, and probably going to put AI data centers on top of them.
Yeah. It's and to say, the people in Appalachia where they're really dirt poor and all of that, they voted for him. A lot of those people in the coal belt voted for him. They're really the disenfranchised and the
Yeah.
poor and the downtrodden, and they felt that Trump was going to do something for them. He's done nothing for them. If
And he
anything,
never
some of
was
his
planning on
policies
it.
have hurt them. Pardon me?
Absolutely. He never had any intention of helping them, but he's
No, that was just
really
a
good at lying.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I come back. I love history, and I come back to it. If you look at history, what have all the dictators done? He's following the playbook. They've all done that. Problem in the society, let me take care of it. And then they introduce these tyrannical measures. Freedom is gone. This freedom is gone. They take that away. And in the meantime, the ruling class gets richer and richer. And, we're seeing that whole movie played out in the United States of America.
So sad. We never thought that would happen. Breathe, deep breath. I feel like, again, trying to keep it at the 30-minute mark, it is time for us to say adieu. I do like to leave it on a happy note. And when we were saying that maybe some Americans and Canadians could never be friends again, I do believe in ultimate forgiveness, like radical forgiveness, because if you hold on to anger for anybody else, it only hurts yourself. So it's really important to understand that, people who maybe disagree with you, there are reasons that we can't see for that disagreement. And so sending them love and forgiveness, even though sometimes it's hard, is a really great way to transmute the energy and turn things around and make it better. So that's what I think we should do.
I totally agree with you. I'm the same way. And I firmly believe that if you hold a grudge and you don't forgive, you're hurting yourself.
Absolutely. It's
Pretty
not good
simple.
for you.
No.
Very, like, words to live by. So next week we come back with not one, but two pulses, because each of us has one. And we're going to do an American pulse and a Canadian pulse. And then we're planning for our lives, which is going to be really great. But again, you must be a paid subscriber to get into the lives. And you'll be able to comment on what we're saying, and we'll be able to answer your questions. And we have people already wanting to ask so many questions.
Well, the interesting thing about that, really look forward to doing the live because, we can do a whole session to just answer your questions.
Yeah,
I mean, there's many different formats you can take and make it really, really interesting. And, I'm looking forward to that because that's the most direct fun you can have with
absolutely.
subscribers as having a great conversation. And that's what it's going to be.
You know what it's like? It's like, remember the old time radio shows where we used to do the news shows and take callers' questions and stuff? Remember those, George, the good old days? Let's
Yes,
create the good old days right now and do it, but we'll do it live on Substack.
absolutely.
Fine, fine,
Done.
done. Okay, so I loved today's talk, even though it was heavy and hard. It's important that we know what's happening so that we can prepare for a more beautiful future, which we will do.
Totally.
And we'll
Count
see
me
you
in.
next week. Okay,
Yes,
you're
we will.
counted.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
Okay.
Subscribe to the Substacks.
Pulse, the podcast. Follow us on Substack at Canadian Pulse, at American Pulse, at Froehlich Media, and at Tamara Stanners. Until next time, let's keep that pulse going.